The night was quiet in a way that felt heavy. The kind of quiet that comes after a long day when the world finally slows down, but your mind refuses to rest. He sat on the edge of the small bed in his apartment, tying his worn shoes after putting his child to sleep. The room was dim, with only a weak yellow light from the hallway. Toys were scattered near the wall, reminders of a life that demanded strength every single day. Being a single father was not something he had planned. Life had pushed him into it, and he had learned to survive without complaining. His days were filled with work that barely paid the bills, and his nights were filled with worry. Still, he never let his child see the fear in his eyes. He believed that love, even when life was unfair, could still be enough. That night, he was getting ready to lie down when his phone began to ring. The sound cut through the silence sharply. He frowned and checked the screen. An unknown number. No name, no picture. Just numbers. He hesitated. Unknown calls usually meant trouble, wrong numbers, or people trying to sell things he could not afford. He almost ignored it. But something made him answer. "Hello?" he said, keeping his voice low so he would not wake his child. There was silence on the other end. For a moment, he thought the call had dropped. Then he heard a soft sound, like someone breathing with difficulty. "Hello?" he said again. A weak female voice finally spoke. Is that you?" He straightened slightly. "I think you have the wrong number," he replied calmly. There was a pause. Then the woman spoke again, her voice shaking. "Please don't hang up. I know this sounds strange. I thought I was calling someone else. But could you stay with me tonight?" The words caught him off guard. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. He could hear something fragile in her tone, something broken. She did not sound dangerous or drunk. She sounded scared. "I'm sorry," he said carefully. "I really think you have the wrong person." "I know," she whispered. "I realize that. But I'm alone right now, and I don't want to be." He glanced toward the bedroom where his child slept. He should hang up. This was not his problem. Yet his hand did not move. "I won't take much of your time," she continued. I just need someone to talk to. Just for tonight." He sighed softly. "Are you okay?" She laughed quietly, but there was no joy in it. "No, I'm really not." That answer changed something in him. He pulled a chair closer and sat down. "All right," he said. "I can stay on the line for a bit." Her breath sounded steadier after that. "Thank you. You have no idea how much that means." They sat in silence for a few seconds. Then she spoke again. "I'm in a very large room, but it feels empty. Funny how that works." He did not ask where she was. "Empty rooms can feel worse than small ones," he said. "Yes," she replied softly. "At least in small spaces, you feel like you belong somewhere." She began talking slowly, as if choosing each word carefully. She spoke about how the nights were the hardest, how the quiet made her thoughts louder. She said she was tired of machines beeping and people checking on her without really seeing her. He listened. He did not interrupt. Listening was something life had taught him well. After a while, he asked, "Do you have family with you?" She hesitated. "Not really. People come and go, but no one stays." The sadness in her voice felt real, not dramatic. It reminded him of nights he had sat alone after putting his child to sleep, wondering how life had ended up this way. "You sound kind," she said suddenly. He smiled faintly. "I don't know about that. I'm just listening." "That's rare," she replied. "Most people talk, but they don't listen." She asked him about his day. No one had asked him that in a long time. He told her about his work, about being tired, about making dinner from leftovers and helping with homework. He did not complain. He simply spoke honestly. "That sounds Peaceful, she said. He chuckled softly. It's not always easy, but it's mine. I envy that, she admitted. The call continued, minute by minute. She never told him her name, and he did not ask. She spoke about regrets, about choices that had given her everything except what she needed most. She mentioned doctors, treatments, and time running out, but never directly said what was wrong. He began to understand without being told. This was not just loneliness. This was fear. Can I ask you something? She said after a long pause. Sure. Do you believe strangers can come into your life for a reason? He thought about it. I think sometimes people appear when you need them most, even if it doesn't make sense. She let out a shaky breath. That's what I was hoping you'd say. The clock on his wall moved closer to midnight. He felt tired, but not sleepy. He felt like he was sitting beside someone invisible, holding space for them. Thank you for not hanging up, she said quietly. You don't have to thank me, he replied. Everyone needs someone sometimes. Her voice grew softer. Will you really stay with me tonight? He looked again toward the bedroom door. Yes, he said. I'm here. On the other end of the line, she smiled through tears he could not see. And for the first time that night, neither of them felt completely alone. The call did not end that night. It stretched quietly into the early hours, with long pauses where neither of them spoke, yet neither felt the need to hang up. Sometimes silence felt kinder than words. When his child shifted in sleep, he lowered his voice even more, as if afraid to disturb not just the room, but the fragile moment they were sharing. She was the first to break the quiet. Are you still there? She asked softly. Yes, he replied without hesitation. I'm here. She let out a slow breath, the kind that sounded like relief. I keep thinking you'll disappear. People usually do. I won't, he said. Not tonight. That promise, simple as it was, seemed to mean more to her than anything else. She began talking again, this time more openly. She spoke about how nights had become her enemy, how darkness brought thoughts she could no longer escape. During the day, there were doctors, staff, and visitors who spoke around her, not to her. At night, there was only the truth. He listened closely, picturing her alone in a quiet place far from his small apartment. He imagined bright lights, clean walls, and a bed that looked too big for one person. Even without seeing her, he felt how heavy her loneliness was. You know, she said, people think having everything means you never feel empty. They're wrong. He nodded, even though she could not see him. I think emptiness doesn't care how much money you have. She gave a short laugh. Exactly. There was a pause before she spoke again. Can I tell you something I've never said out loud? You can, he answered gently. I'm afraid, she whispered. Not of dying exactly. I'm afraid of being forgotten while I'm still here. The words settled heavily between them. He felt a tightness in his chest. You're not forgotten, he said slowly. At least not right now. I hear you. Her voice broke. Thank you. She asked about his child, curious in a way that felt genuine. He told her about bedtime stories, messy drawings on the fridge, and how he pretended not to be tired just to hear one more story request. As he spoke, he realized how rarely he talked about his life to anyone. That sounds like real love, she said. It is, he replied. It's the kind that keeps you going, even when you feel like you can't. I wish I had that, she admitted quietly. You still do, he said. It just looks different. As the hours passed, her voice grew weaker, but also calmer. She told him pieces of her life, never giving full details, just fragments. She spoke of growing up surrounded by people, but feeling unseen. Of learning early that success impressed others, but kindness was often ignored. Everyone wanted something from me, she said. Very few wanted me. He understood that feeling more than he expected. Sometimes, he said, people are so focused on what they can take, they forget to give. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You don't want anything from me, do you?" "No," he answered honestly. "I didn't even know who you were when you called." That seemed to comfort her. "That's why I trust you," she said. "You're just real." Eventually, her breathing slowed, and she told him she was feeling tired. He stayed on the line, listening to the soft rhythm of her breath, afraid that if he spoke too loudly, he might break the peace she had finally found. When morning light began to creep through his window, she spoke again. "You stayed," she said, surprised. "I told you I would," he replied. She smiled through her voice. "No one has done that for me in a long time." Before ending the call, she asked if she could call him again. "Not right now," she said, "but later, if that's okay." "It's okay," he said. When the call finally ended, he sat quietly for a long time. He felt drained, yet strangely lighter, as if by carrying someone else's burden for a few hours, his own had become easier to bear. The next day passed like any other. Work, noise, responsibility. Yet his thoughts kept drifting back to the voice on the phone. He wondered how she was doing. He wondered if she was alone again. That evening, as he prepared dinner, his phone rang. The same unknown number. He answered immediately. "Hello. I was hoping you would," she said softly. Her voice sounded weaker than the night before. "I didn't sleep much," she admitted, "but I wasn't afraid." "I'm glad," he said. She told him she was in a hospital room overlooking the city. She described lights that never turned off and hallways that echoed with footsteps. She said people treated her kindly, but carefully, like she might break. "They look at me like I'm already gone," she said. "You're still here," he replied. "That matters." She asked him why he had stayed on the phone with a stranger for so long. He thought about it before answering. "Because I know what it feels like to be alone," he said. "And because sometimes doing the right thing doesn't need a reason." She was quiet again, then spoke in a serious tone. "I need to tell you something important, but not yet. I just need you to keep listening for now." "I can do that," he said. As the call went on, she began coughing, and he could hear nurses in the background. She apologized for the noise. "I hate when people fuss over me," she said. "It reminds me how little time I have." He wanted to say something comforting, but words felt small. So he stayed. He listened. He reminded her she was not invisible. Before hanging up, she said, "You've made these days easier, even if you don't realize it." "I'm glad I could," he replied. After the call, he sat beside his child, watching them eat dinner and laugh at something small. He realized how fragile life was, and how strange it was that two people from completely different worlds could meet through a simple mistake. That night, as he lay in bed, he wondered what she needed to tell him. And somewhere across the city, in a quiet hospital room, she stared at the ceiling, holding on to the sound of a voice that had made her feel human again. The days that followed began to blend together in a strange rhythm. Morning responsibilities pulled him into the real world, while evenings returned him to a quiet voice on the phone. Each call felt familiar now, like sitting with someone on a porch after sunset, sharing thoughts that had nowhere else to go. She started calling at the same time every evening. He noticed it without thinking about it too much. When his phone rang and he saw the unknown number, his chest tightened in a way that surprised him. He always answered. "How was your day?" she asked one night. "Tiring," he replied honestly. "But good. That sounds like progress," she said with a small laugh. She asked about his child again, remembering details he had shared earlier. She asked if homework had been finished, if dinner had been eaten. He realized she listened closely, storing small pieces of his life like they mattered. They do matter, she said when he mentioned that thought aloud. Little things are what make life feel real. That night, she sounded different. Her voice was softer, slower, as if every word took effort. He could hear machines in the background now, faint but constant. It made him uneasy. Are you in pain? He asked gently. A bit, she admitted. But it's not the worst part. What is? Knowing I don't have much time left, she said simply. He swallowed. You don't have to talk about that if you don't want to. I want to, she said. With you? She told him the truth then, not in medical terms, not in dramatic detail, but in a quiet, honest way. She said her body was tired. Treatments were no longer working. Doctors spoke in careful sentences and avoided direct answers. She had learned to read their eyes. I'm not angry, she said. I'm just unfinished. Those words stayed with him long after the call ended that night. The next evening, she asked him something unexpected. Would you ever visit someone you met by accident? He was silent for a moment. I guess it would depend on the reason. There's a reason, she said softly. I don't want to face what's coming alone. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the wall. The idea scared him. This was no longer just a voice on the phone. This was a real person, in a real place, asking for something that felt heavy. I don't know, he said honestly. My life is complicated. I understand, she replied. I wouldn't ask if it didn't matter. They did not talk about it again that night. But the question stayed between them, quiet and waiting. Over the next few days, small cracks appeared in the picture he had formed of her. Sometimes he heard people addressing her with a tone that felt careful, almost respectful. Once, she mentioned paperwork and meetings that needed her approval, even from her hospital bed. You sound busy, he said. She sighed. Busy has followed me my whole life. What do you do? He asked finally. There was a pause. I manage things, she said vaguely. Big things. He smiled to himself. That doesn't tell me much. It's enough for now, she replied. Despite the mystery, he did not push. He had learned that trust grew when it was not forced. One evening, his child sat beside him while he was on the phone, quietly drawing. She noticed his gentle tone and curious smile. Who are you talking to? The child asked. He hesitated. A friend. The word surprised him. But it felt right. Later that night, after the call ended, he thought about how easily that word had come. Friend. Someone he had never seen, never touched, yet somehow understood better than many people he had known for years. Her health declined faster after that. Some nights she could only talk for a few minutes before needing to rest. He stayed on the line anyway, even when she slept, listening to the quiet sounds of the room on her end. You don't have to stay, she whispered once, half asleep. I know, he replied. But I want to. One night she asked him to promise something. If I ask you to come, she said, will you at least think about it? I will, he said. That's all I need, she replied. The following day, he received a call earlier than usual. Her voice sounded urgent. They say I don't have much time, she said. Days, maybe weeks. His heart sank. I'm sorry, he said, feeling the words were not enough. There's something I need to tell you, she continued. I should have told you sooner. He listened carefully. I'm not just sick, she said. I'm also well known. What do you mean? He asked. She hesitated, then spoke clearly. I have more money than I could ever spend. Companies, properties, people who work for me. I never wanted that to be the first thing you knew about me. He was silent. The pieces fell into place all at once. I didn't stay because of who you are, he said finally. You know that, right? I do, she said quickly. That's why this matters. She explained that her world was full of people who smiled too much and listened too little. That every relationship felt measured, watched, and judged. With you, she said, I'm just a person who's afraid. The next words changed everything. I want you to come see me. He felt fear and doubt rise together. I don't belong in your world, he said. You belong with me, she replied, even if it's only for a little while. He looked around his small apartment. The worn couch, the quiet walls, the sleeping child. His life was simple, but it was real. I'll need to think, he said. I know, she replied. Just don't say no yet. That night, he barely slept. His thoughts moved between responsibility and compassion, fear and duty. He wondered what kind of person he would be if he turned away. The next evening, he called her instead of waiting. I've been thinking, he said, double quotes, yes? She replied, I can come, he said slowly, but not as anything other than myself. That's all I want, she said, her voice full of emotion. They agreed on a day. A simple visit. No expectations. When the call ended, he felt the weight of what he had agreed to. Somewhere in a hospital room filled with soft lights and quiet machines, she closed her eyes with a small smile. Two lives from different worlds were about to meet, and neither of them knew how much everything was about to change. The day he was supposed to visit arrived quietly. No dramatic signs, no sudden feeling of certainty. Just a steady nervousness that followed him from the moment he woke up. He prepared breakfast, helped his child get ready, and tried to act normal, but his mind kept drifting to the place he was about to go after dropping his child off. He stood outside the hospital for a long moment before going in. The building was tall and modern, with glass walls that reflected the sky. People walked in and out with purpose, carrying flowers, folders, or nothing at all. He felt small standing there, like he had stepped into a world that did not belong to him. Inside, everything smelled clean and sharp. The floors shined. The air felt heavy with quiet conversations and distant beeping sounds. A staff member guided him through long hallways and up a private elevator. With each floor they passed, his heart beat faster. When the doors finally opened, the space felt different, quieter, softer. He noticed security nearby, subtle but present. That was when the truth fully settled in. This was not an ordinary hospital room. He was led to a large room with wide windows overlooking the city. Sunlight poured in, but the space still felt lonely. Machines stood near the bed, their steady sounds filling the silence. She was lying there, smaller than he had imagined. Her skin looked pale, her hair pulled back neatly. When she saw him, her eyes widened. You came, she said, her voice thin but full of emotion. I said I would, he replied, stepping closer. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Seeing each other felt strange, almost unreal. The voice that had felt so familiar now had a face, tired but kind. Thank you, she whispered. He pulled a chair closer and sat beside her bed. How are you feeling? She smiled weakly. Better now. A nurse entered briefly, checking monitors and adjusting something. The way she spoke to her was respectful, careful. When she left, the room felt quieter than before. I was afraid you'd change your mind, she admitted. So was I, he said honestly. She laughed softly, then grew serious. I didn't want you to see me like this. Weak, dependent. There's nothing wrong with being human, he replied. That answer seemed to ease her. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. I've spent my life pretending I don't need anyone. You don't have to pretend here, he said. They talked slowly, carefully, as if afraid the moment might break if they moved too fast. She asked about his child, and he showed her a photo on his phone. Her face softened as she looked at it. "You did good," she said. He shook his head. "I'm still learning." She nodded. "We all are." As the hours passed, he noticed people coming in quietly. Doctors, assistants, legal staff. They spoke to her in low voices, often glancing at him with curiosity. He felt out of place, but she never asked him to leave Dot at one point. She reached out and lightly held his hand. Her grip was weak, but steady. "Stay," she said. "I'm not going anywhere," he replied. Later, when they were alone again, she told him more about her life, about growing up with expectations instead of affection, about learning early that success earned attention, but honesty made people uncomfortable. "I've been surrounded by people my whole life," she said, "but I've never felt so understood." He listened, just as he always had. "I don't want my last days to be about contracts and decisions," she continued. "I want them to be about something real." "You're allowed to choose that," he said. She looked at him closely. "That's why I asked you to come. You remind me of what real looks like." The next few days followed a gentle routine. He visited whenever he could. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they sat in silence, watching the city lights come on through the window. His presence changed the room. Nurses noticed it. The tension eased. She smiled more, even on hard days. One evening, she asked him to bring his child. "I want to meet the person you keep talking about," she said. He hesitated. "It's a hospital." "I know," she replied, "but I want to see that kind of hope before I go." The visit was short and quiet. His child stayed close to him, curious but calm. She spoke gently, asking simple questions, laughing softly at small answers. When they left, her eyes were wet. "That was the best part of my day," she said afterward. That night, she asked him something serious. "When I'm gone," she said, "will you remember me?" He swallowed. "Yes, not as who I was on paper," she added, "but as who I was with you." "I will," he promised. A few days later, her condition worsened. Conversations became shorter. Breathing became harder. Doctors spoke more quietly now. One night, she asked him to stay late. "I don't want to be alone tonight," she said. He stayed. He sat by her bed, holding her hand, talking about ordinary things. The weather. Small moments. Anything that reminded her she was still here. "You changed something in me," she whispered. "You did the same for me," he replied. She looked at him with a tired smile. "I have one more request." He leaned closer. "Anything. Live fully," she said. "For both of us." Tears filled his eyes, but he nodded. As the night grew quieter, he stayed by her side. And for the first time in a long time, she did not feel afraid. The night stretched on quietly. Machines hummed in a steady rhythm, and the city outside the window glowed with distant lights. He sat beside her bed, holding her hand, careful not to squeeze too hard. Her breathing was shallow but calm, like someone resting after a long journey. She opened her eyes slowly. "Are you still here?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "I'm right here." A faint smile touched her lips. "I was afraid I'd wake up alone." "You won't," he replied. For a while, they stayed like that, sharing the quiet. He spoke softly about small things. The way the morning light used to hit his kitchen window. The silly joke his child had told earlier that day. The sound of rain on the roof of the old building where they lived. She listened with closed eyes, her face relaxed. "Those moments," she said after a pause, "they matter more than people admit." "They do," he agreed. "They're what stay with you." She took a slow breath. "I've spent so much time chasing big things. I forgot how powerful the small ones are." Her hand tightened slightly around his. "Promise me something," she said. "I'm listening." "Don't let life harden you," she whispered. even when it's unfair. He nodded, feeling tears rise. I promise. As the hours passed, staff came in and out quietly. No one rushed him. No one asked him to leave. It felt like everyone understood this moment was not meant to be interrupted. Near dawn, she stirred again. Her voice was weaker now. I'm tired, she said. It's okay, he replied. You can rest. She opened her eyes one last time and looked at him. Thank you for staying with me, she whispered. You made the ending gentle. He leaned closer. You're not alone, he said. She closed her eyes, her breathing slowing until it finally stopped. The room felt still in a way he had never experienced before. He stayed where he was for a long time, holding her hand even after he knew she was gone. When a nurse finally placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, he nodded quietly and let go. The days that followed felt unreal. There were services, meetings, and people he had never seen before. People who spoke of her achievements, her success, her influence. He listened politely, but those words felt distant. They did not match the woman who had asked him to stay on the phone late at night because she was afraid of being alone. After everything settled, he was called back to the hospital, then to an office filled with warm light and calm voices. Papers were placed in front of him. He barely looked at them at first. She made some choices, one of them said gently. Very clear ones. He listened as they explained. She had arranged support for him and his child. Education, stability, and a future that no longer felt fragile. But there were also instructions that surprised everyone. She had asked that he be given something more important than money. A chance. She had set aside funds to support families like his. Quiet help. Honest work. No attention. She wanted it done simply, the way he lived his life. He felt overwhelmed. I didn't do this for anything, he said. We know, they replied. That's why she chose you. When he returned home that evening, his child ran to him, arms open. He held them tightly, feeling the weight of everything he had almost lost and everything he had been given back in the weeks that followed. Life slowly found a new rhythm. He returned to work, but now with less fear. He volunteered his time to help others, just as she had asked. Quietly, without recognition, sometimes late at night, he thought about that first call. The wrong number. The mistake that had changed 2 lives. He kept his promise. He lived fully. He stayed kind. And when life felt heavy, he remembered a soft voice asking him to stay. Not just for a night, but forever, in memory.